Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 6 of Curious About Kakuro. This week I'll just be carrying on pretty much the same as the last time, trying to solve from start to finish an intermediate puzzle, and just again running through the basics of what we've done before in working through the pairs, the triples, the quads and other runs, matching pairs on the line and boxes, just to make a start and get through, because I've noticed that there's not that much difference in difficulty between the intermediate level and the easy levels on these. So we want to just do a quick video and we'll step it up to get into the more challenging, harder ones into the near future as we can. I hope that you've tried these and you've been onto this KakuroConquest.com, tried their puzzles, and you'll by now be getting a hang of it. So let's just get straight into this and just quickly scan through, as we usually do, from top to bottom, left to right, putting in the known numbers and eliminating numbers that we can't be. And at the end of this video, I just want to put up another couple of charts explaining a few more things. You'll probably find that if you use these methods that we're showing you, that you can get to a solution. If you study the charts and you understand and you can memorize the runs of the puzzle, all that it's going to do is to make things quicker and easier for you. It's a little bit more technical, but there's always more than one ways to get to the results in these, but there is only one result. So let's just scan through and see if we can quickly put in what we learned previously. 27. Okay, I know that in that row of 4 then, that the smallest number that can go anywhere in there is a 3. So it's because the highest number that I can have remaining in there is 7, 8, 9, which is 24, so 3. There's no point putting any 1s or 2s in there, they can't go. Here with the 7, I know that that is the second lowest pair. It isn't a 1, 2, 3 that makes 6. It's got to be 1, 2, or 4. So I can put in here 1, 2, or 4. This can only be 1, 2, or 4, which means that this can only be a 3, a 5, or a 6 in this box, depending on what number goes into that box. Also in here, I know that you can't have a 1 in there, because obviously if one of those numbers was a 1, then you'd have to be looking at 3 numbers adding up to 25. And 24 is the highest number you can get. So remember, no 1s in there. So straight away I've noticed here we're looking at 2 numbers adding up to 4, which can only be 1 and 3. So straight away we know that that has to be the 3, because it can't be 1. This has to be the 1. Because it's 3, then that can't be 3. If that can't be 3, that cannot be 4. Okay, simple mathematics now. 3 from 26 leaves 23, which we know is the highest no option 3 run. So this has to be 6, 8, and 9. I can eliminate the 5. It has to be 6, which I know here in the 14, that cannot be the 9. If that was a 9, we'd only be looking for 5 in 3 boxes, whereas we can't have that. So it's got to be 6, 8, and 9. Okay, 6 means that that has to be the 1 to make 7. This cannot be 1. This cannot be 1. And because we've established here 8, it then means that we've got to have 6 to make up the 14. Remember, 9 would have been too big to go in there. You can't have 3 numbers adding up to 5. So because we've got 8, it has to add up to 6, which is only 1, 2, and 3. I can get rid of that 4. Because this is the 1, I know that that is where the 3 has to go, which means that this has to be the 1 to make the 1, 2, 3. So this has to be the 8. Because you can't have the same number on any row or column, this has to be the 4. Okay, so we're starting to get a corner established here. Now then, let's have a look across here on this row we've got established. 3 and 1 is 4, subtracted from 20 means that there's 16 left. 16 can only be 7 and 9. We've already got the 9 established, so that has to be 7. This is 9. Okay, let's just keep working across and we'll get down to here. 16 again can only be 7 and 9. I know that it can't be 9 because you can't have 9, 1, 1 to make 11. So that has to be the 7. This is the 9. 7 and 4 makes 11, so it can only be 1 and 3. And going back to the first row, I know that that one can't be the 1, it's got to be the 3. So therefore this has to be the 1 in this column. Now we're looking for 3 numbers that add up to 24, which we know is 7, 8 and 9. So in here can only go 7 and 8, because you can't have 9 and 0. We've already got a 9 here, so we've got 7 and 8. Knowing that we've now got a matching pair, we know that 7, 8, this has got to be the 9. You can also add it up by saying 7 and 8 is 15, this is 18, so this has to be the 9 to make 27. Okay, let's look at the tangents here. If it's an 8, then that would have to be 1, but we've already got the 1, so it can only be 7 and 2, which means that this has to be the 8, and 9 and 4 makes 13. So 1, 2, 4 is 7. This has to be the 6 to make 13. 6, 8, 9 is 23, which means that this has to be 5 to make the 28. So, okay, we take now 5 from 29 and it leaves 24, which again is a 7, 8, 9. We've got a 9 here, that can only be 7, 8. So this can be 7, 8 or 9. This can be 7, 8 or 9. So we've now made good inroads of about a third of this puzzle already. Here we've got the lowest triple run with no options, can only be 1, 2 or 3. I know that in here it can't be the 1, because if it was 1 it would mean 2 numbers adding up to 18, which there's no such thing. So this can only be 2 or 3. This here can be 1, 2 or 3. This can be 1, 2 and 3. Now then, if this was a 2, then we'd be looking at 2 numbers adding up to 18, which could, 2 numbers that are adding up to 17, which can only be 8 and 9. If it's the 3, then we're looking at 2 numbers that are adding up to 16, which can only be 7 and 9. So straight away, I know that in this box, the only numbers can go 7, 8 or 9. I can put them in. Okay, let's carry on here. We know that now we've got 2 numbers, 1 and 2 to make 3. 1 can't go here because the 11, so this has to be the 2. This is the 1. Because that's 2, then this has to be 9. 9 means that that one can't be 9. And we also know that if this is a 2, it's got to be 8 and 9. If it's a 3, it's got to be 7 and 9. So 9 can't go here, so that has to be the 9. If that's a 9, this can't be. We've now got the matching pair, 7 and 8, and you can see how the numbers are slowly working themselves out. In this column across here, the target is 32, so let's work these out now. 9 and 4 is 13, and 7 is 20, 28, 29. That's got to be the 3. Okay, carrying on here, 45. We know that because that's using really asking you for 9 numbers, there's only one number can possibly be the target, which is 45, and it uses every single digit. So all we're looking for there is every digit that's left except for 9 and 3, because they're established. Here we go again. 17 can only be 8 or 9. I know that this one has to be the 8. This one has to be the 9. You can't have 9, 0, so 8, this is now 1. So every time we put them in, we're eliminating it or putting something in or taking something away. 7, we know can only be the 1, 2 and 4. This can only be 1, 2 or 4. This can only be 1, 2 or 4. 10 is going to give us options. 26 is going to give us options. 14 is going to give us options, but I know that none of those numbers in there can be 9. Again, for the same reason that we mentioned before up here. If it's a 9, there'd be 3 numbers left adding up to 5, which we can't have. Okay, 8 was going to give us options. Number 30 in 4, we know that that is the top run with no options, can only be 6, 7, 8 and 9. So we know that numbers here adding up to 7, that can only be the 6. So here has to be 7, 8 or 9. this 7, 8 or 9, and here can only be 7, 8 because we've already got a 9. 6 means that's got to be 1. So now we're looking for two numbers adding up to 13. So I know it can't be 1, 2 or 3 that go in there. Tangents off here, 9 can only be 3, 4 or 5. They will go into there. Okay, let's carry on across here. 20 options, 26 options. No. Let's have a look here of anything vertical. 26, that is going to mean that we've got to look. 1, 2, 3. Here's a good little trick we can see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers that will be adding up to 26. We've already got established a 9. So we subtract 9 from 26, then we're looking at 17. Okay, so if this was a 7, that would mean that there's 4 squares in which we've got to make up 10, which we know can only be 1, 2, 3, and 4. If it's 8, then we've got 4 squares that we've got to make up 9. There's not enough numbers in there, so I know that that has to be the 7. It can't be the 8. So we'll subtract 7 from there and 7 from there. Okay, we can work on this. Now we know that 7 and 9 is 16. Subtract from 20, it leaves 10. 4 squares, it can only be 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've already got a 1 established there, so that can only be 2, 3, or 4. This can only be 2, 3, or 4. This can be 1, 2, 3, 4. This could be 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's work off of the tangents here. We know that making up 10, this can be 6, 7, 8, or 9. Okay, now then, let me go back here down here to the bottom corner. What we're looking at now here, as we said, is now we're looking for two numbers that will add up to 13. So I know it cannot be the 2 or the 3. It can only be 4 and 9. 9 means that that cannot be 9. Sorry, that can't be 9, so that has to be 8. This cannot be 8 or 9. If that can't be 8 or 9, then this can only be 3 or 4. Okay, because that's 8, this has to be 9, which means that this has to be the 3. Because it's 3, that cannot be 3. It can't be 4. That can't be 4. That can't be 4. It can't be 3. So there we've sorted out that complete line quite quickly now for the 26. Because we've now got 3, that has to be 7. 7, 8, 9 is 24. This has to be 2. 1, 2, 3 is 6, so this has to be 8 to make 14. Because we've established 8, this is the 7. And this is the 8. Okay, this is a good lead in now to see if we can work out anything here. 9, 8, 2, no, that's still working out okay. 8 and 8 is 16. So we've got to make these add up to 8. If it's a 3, it can only be 5, 6, or 7. Okay, let's work on here. 7, 8, 9 is 24, 34, 40. 18, there's quite a few numbers that can go in here. Okay, let's look down here now. At 4, this can only be 1 or 3. I know they're in there. It can't be 1. That has to be the 3. This has to be the 1. We're now looking at 3 numbers that add up to 23, which can be 6, 8, or 9. So it can only be 6 or 8. This can be 6, 8, 9. This can be 6, 8, 9. 8 and 1 makes 9, so I can eliminate that. We've already got the 1 there. It can only be 6 and 3. So this can't be 6. This can't be 6. 3 and 1 is 4. From 20 leaves 16. It can only be 7 and 9. This can only be 7 and 9. So now, as we went through before, we have now got a box down here, which is 2 matching pairs, 9 in every box. So I know that on this line, it has to be either 8 or 9 or 7 or 9. On this box, it's got to be 8 and 9 or 7 and 9. It can't be 7 and 8 on either of the lines, so we can work out the numbers here. If it's 8 and 9, it's 17 and 1. If it's 7, 9, it's 16 and 2. They're the only numbers that can go in there, which means that this can only be 6 or 7. Okay, where can we go to now? 7, 8, 9, 24 and 2. Okay, we know that this can only be 8 or 9 or 7 and 9. Let's just assume for now it's going to be 8 and 9, which is 17. That means that we're short 9. So this can only be in here a 2 or a 3. If we're assuming that it's a 7 and 9, then that's 16. It's got to be 10. It can't be the 7 because we've used it. It can only be 6 and 4. So the numbers across here can only be 2, 3, and 4. Let's see if there are other numbers that we can work out across here. So we know we've got 1, 2, 3. So we're looking at 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We'll put them in. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 4, 5, 6. It cannot be 7 and 8 in there. So let's see if any of these numbers, we've got 7, 8, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 8, 9, 8, and 5, 9, 24, 34, 44, 18, 8, and 8. Okay, let's work on this row across here, looking for 26. If that was a 2, then we're looking at 24 remaining, which would have to be 7, 8, and 9. We know that in this book we cannot put a 7, 8, or a 9 in there because we've used all those numbers, so that cannot be a 2. Okay, so if that can't be a 2, we can't have the numbers 7, 8, or 9. If that was a 7, then we would have to have 7, 8, and 9. So I know then that the 7 cannot go in there. That has to be the 6. If it's a 6, that has to be the 2. If that's 2, then that means that is now 16, which can only be 7 and 9. So if that's 7, that's the 9. If that's 9, this has to be 8. If that's 7, that has to be 9. So 6, 8, 9 is 23, and 3 makes 26. So now we're looking for 3 numbers here that's adding up to 26, which can only be 6, 8, and 9. We've already got 8 and 9 here. That can only be the 6, which means this can only be 8 or 9. This can only be 8 or 9. So now we've got 6, 7, 8, 9. This here cannot be a 6. Okay, 6, 7, 8, 9 is 30. So it means that we've now got 12 that will add up to in these numbers up here. So if we add up the 3 highest numbers, which is 3, 4, and 5, that is the only way that we can get to a 12. So it means that we can eliminate the smaller numbers. We can get rid of the 1s and 2s. Here we can get rid of the 1s and 2s. So it shows us here that we've got 3, 4. This has to be the 5. Because that's 5, this can't be 5. And it means that this one here cannot be 5. And it means that this one here cannot be 5. Because this is 3, this can only be 1 or 2. Eliminate that, eliminate that. We've got the 2, this is the 1. We're now going to very quickly finish this puzzle. 9, 10, 11, so this is 8. Because this is 8, this cannot be 8. And this cannot be 8. So we're left with the remainder 4, 6, 7. 8 and 1 is 9, and 7 is 16. This cannot be 7. This cannot be 7. So we're looking at 5 and 6 here. 4, this can only be 1 or 2. I can eliminate this 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. So we've only got this little batch here in the middle that we can sort out. Okay, if this number here was a 9, it would mean that we'd have to have 9 and 4 to add up to 13. So we know that that cannot be the 9. We've run out of numbers. That has to be the 8. That has to be the 9. Because it's 8, we know that 8 and 6 is 14. The only numbers that can add up in there is 8 and 4, which is 12, and the 1 to make the 13. 1 makes this the 2. 4 means that that is now the 6. That is all squares closed. I'll hit the check button and we'll see how quickly it took us to solve that whole intermediate puzzle. Well, we done it in 21 minutes. As you will soon get these down to around the 10-minute mark or even less. But that is, again, going through an intermediate puzzle. What I will do now is put it up those charts that I wanted to speak about, just explaining a few more technical things on how the runs come about. Next time we will probably step it up into the harder puzzles and see if we can find any other tips and tricks that we can show you. But yeah, I will now put these charts up on the screen. Okay, this first chart that I'm showing you is the all the possible 3-number run options. We've gone through the ones that have got no options. These are all the possibilities for any time that you need 3 numbers to get. This shows you all of the possibilities. Now, you can still use the prompts that's on the puzzle, or obviously the more that you memorize these or work out the patterns of how the numbers are structured, the better off and the quicker that you will be able to solve these puzzles. So once you know about these 3 run possibilities, that really now is everything that you ever need to know about 3-number runs. Okay, the next one. Okay, this second chart is the same thing but showing you all the possible 4-number run possibilities. Exactly the same rules will apply to the 3 numbers. It shows you on here the numbers that have got no options and the numbers where there are variables. So the same thing applies, is that the more you can figure out how these are structured, the better you can memorize, the quicker you will be, the easier it will be for you. Or you can use the prompts. But again, the more times that you try these puzzles, the quicker and easier it will be. Anyway, that's enough for me now. Next time we'll be stepping it up to the harder puzzles, and I'll be looking for anything else that we can show that can add to what we've already known. By this time, you should be getting familiar with how these work and getting confident and getting quicker. I'll catch you next time. Bye.